So surprise, surprise, y'all. Little Benny boy here, old Benny boy, decided it is now officially time to bend the knee for the second time to Donald Trump. I don't know how many of you recall this, but back in 2016, he was all in for Ted Cruz. That was his chosen candidate. I think Ben is correct in thinking that Ted Cruz is the most conservative, or one of the most conservative of the people that were on the stage in 2015 and 2016. And apparently Ben is massively conservative, not a shock to anybody. So we went with Cruz, and he said all sorts of stuff about Trump, called him a liar and an entitled, baby, basically, and took a lot of shots at him, but then eventually, of course, bent the knee when Trump became the nominee. And now we're at the point where he was all in for Ron DeSantis. All in for Ron DeSantis. Really, like, arguing for him vociferously. He even did some segments going back a little bit where when it looked like it was a lot closer and DeSantis was starting to slip, he would still go out there and make forceful arguments in favor of Ron DeSantis and against Donald Trump. But now, even though we've only had two contests, and actually he did this after one contest, after Iowa, but he decided, all right, enough. So here it says in Mediaite, Ben Shapiro endorses Donald Trump, quote, "It's time for the party to coalesce." Prominent conservative commentator Ben Shapiro endorsed former President Trump on Monday, one day after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis dropped out of the Republican presidential primary. I think I have a video here. Yeah, let's listen to... I actually haven't listened to this yet. Let's see what he had to say.
Well, folks, I'm here in Poland. I was visiting Auschwitz with Elon Musk today, so I didn't have a chance until now to actually comment.
By the way, when I saw that video title on YouTube, I felt like I was in a fever dream. The title of his video was like, "At Auschwitz with Elon Musk." I was like, what? Isn't this the guy who was just spreading like massive anti-Semitic conspiracy theories on Twitter like 7.5 seconds ago? Remember that? When like somebody was like lecturing Jews and saying like, you're opponents of white Anglo-Saxons or something to that effect. And Elon Musk responded and was like, "You've spoken the truth." And now, look at what's going on. Jesus.
So I didn't have a chance until now to actually comment on Ron DeSantis dropping out of the race. Obviously, Governor DeSantis was my favorite candidate in the race. I think he would have made the best president of all the candidates who are in the race. And obviously, the Republican voting base wants Donald Trump. And you know what? That's the Republican voting base's prerogative. I think there'll be a future for Ron DeSantis in the movement. I think there'll be another time for Governor DeSantis again. Best governor in the country. With that said, this primary race, as I said after Iowa, is over. It remains over. New Hampshire will be won by Donald Trump. It's time for the party to coalesce around the guy who is going to beat Joe Biden, and that guy is Donald Trump.
Man, I would love to know what he actually thinks about Trump. Like the off the record, behind the scenes, like what do you actually think about this dude? Because you could tell that's through gritted teeth. He doesn't want to say it. He feels like he has to say it. Now, by the way, look, man, Ben, you're in media. You're not a politician. And even if you were a politician, you don't have to do that. You don't have to say, "I endorse Trump." Look, there's an argument from just a practical, pragmatic perspective. He could say, "Look, I'm conservative. He's going to be the most conservative candidate in the race, so I'm going to back up the most conservative candidate." There's actually a logic to that that's perfectly reasonable. But, look, I think Ben Shapiro probably prefers Nikki Haley to Donald Trump. And he did this after Iowa. When New Hampshire came around, yes, Trump won, but Haley outperformed the polls by at least 10 points. She was at 35%. She ended up getting about 44%, and Trump got 55%. It was a lot closer than a lot of people thought. And all the moderates, all the independents, all the unaffiliated, and even some people who were former massive Trump supporters are now Trump skeptical. And he's the weakest general election candidate. I mean, that's the only way Biden has a chance to win is if he's up against Trump, and now it looks like he's going to be up against Trump. And so I guess the thing I don't respect about what Ben Shapiro is doing here is I think he's just making a calculation to like appease his audience. You know what I mean? I think in his heart of hearts, he would either after Iowa come out and say, "Look, DeSantis dropped out. He was my preferred candidate. I still prefer Nikki Haley to Donald Trump, to be honest with you guys." And then after New Hampshire or South Carolina, you can say, "Yeah, well, now it's only Trump left, and I do prefer Trump to Biden." But instead of just being like fully honest, what does he do? I think he went like this. The writing's on the wall. I can sense the direction of the Republican base. And I think it's just a crass calculation to sort of go along to get along with his audience, right? And I don't really respect that. I don't really respect that. You know, like we were put in a similar situation back in 2016 and in 2020 when it became clear it was going to be Hillary, and then it became clear it was going to be Biden. And, you know, if you're a Bernie supporter, we all remember how terrible that felt. And again, there's an argument to be made if your calculation is sincerely like, I just think Hillary's way better than Trump. I just think Biden's way better than Trump. I'm going to back them. Like, I get all that. There's an argument to be made there for sure. But especially as a media figure, you didn't have to say anything, right? You didn't have to endorse him. You didn't have to throw your lot in with him. You could have just said nothing. You could have been honest and said, I still prefer Nikki Haley. She's still in the race. But instead, it's all, let me follow the audience. So, I don't know, man. I get it. There's a logic to it. There's an argument for it. But at the same time, it's not what he really wants. It's not what he wants. And, I don't know, the DeSantis people, I'll ask you guys this question, because this is one that I've been thinking about quite a bit. I do have some sort of sympathy for the DeSantis people, not because I agree with them on policy. I think they're like monstrous on policy, to be clear. But it does, I don't know, does it remind me more of Bernie or does it remind me more of Elizabeth Warren? I think I lean a little more towards DeSantis like Warren. You know how Warren's whole thing was like, she has a plan for that. And DeSantis was the Republican version of like, he has a plan for that. And it's like, yeah, on the actual policy, this guy was the more conservative person. More importantly, I think that he was more effective. He clearly, as a legislator, gets more accomplished than Trump. He's better at coalition building. He's better at getting stuff through the legislative bodies. He's better at, honestly, even like setting an agenda. He's better at. He went all in with his goofy anti-woke stuff. And, you know, I think all that stuff is bad, but he was able to get it through, right? It was like effective. And so part of me feels bad for the DeSantis people because they're like, I don't get it. This guy's just like Trump, but better. This guy's the Trump 2.0. He's the updated version. He's no drama. He's no silliness. He's no mean tweets at Bette Midler at 4 a.m. He's like the serious one who gets shit done, and you idiots didn't pick him, right? So on the one hand, I feel bad for him. But on the other hand, I also feel like you don't get it. It's like all about that shit, right? It's all about the show. It's all about the mean tweets. It's all about being entertained, right? And that's what he represents, that Ron DeSantis just didn't at all. That Ron DeSantis, you know, his personality really turned people off. He deeply uncharismatic, deeply introverted. People, you know, I didn't think he was as bad as people were saying early on. Turns out, no, he was as bad as everybody was saying. He's more uncharismatic than I certainly thought he was early on. And so, I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think of this. I think this is a purely tactical decision from a media perspective for his company, the Daily Wire, to remain relevant. He knows it would have led to a giant backlash if he either said nothing, right, or he came out and said, I still prefer Nikki Haley and she's still in the race, and then later on said, I prefer Trump to Biden. It's just weirdly calculated for somebody who's in his position, because the whole point of being in media is supposed to be we're the people who will say whatever the fuck we think, whatever the fuck we feel, whether it's popular, unpopular, and he has had, at moments, done that. But this is not one of those moments. And as I said, I'll wrap up on this. I really would love to know what he actually thinks of Donald Trump behind closed doors in a private conversation. Because I get the sense it's actually way more hostile than he puts on publicly. Because now he's right back in 2016 mode where it's like, all right, I'm going to play offense for my team, the Republicans, and, you know, defend Trump no matter what, even in instances where I think he's bad and wrong. And that, I can't respect that, right? Because as somebody who's in this same media position, just more on the left, you know, it's incumbent upon me to be totally honest and upfront and tell you when I think Biden does something great, when I think Biden does something terrible, and to like always be like, the deal you make is I'm totally unfiltered, I'm an open book. And he doesn't strike me as being an open book here. He doesn't. Even though there's an argument for it from you know, a logical perspective, he's closest aligned to me, whatever. It's still not what he really wants to do. And I think that's kind of sad. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.